You're listening to Tassie Encounters Moments on Faith FM, and we're coming to you from Tasmania, right across Australia. Each weekday on Tassie Encounters, you can hear what the Bible says about past, current, and future events. You can learn how to study the Bible more effectively. You can get to know who God is, why we're here, and where we're going. And you can experience personal encounters with Jesus. I'm your host, Jason Cook, and David Leo joins us again on our Tassie Encounters Moments segments for this week. And we've been looking at the topic of finding peace in troubled times. David, don't panic was our first concept there.
Yeah.
Jesus warned us things were going to happen.
That's right.
And, you know, Jesus actually also says to his disciples that I'm telling you these things ahead of time so that when they happen, you will believe.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Your faith will be strengthened.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the Bible, with its prophecy, its prophetic aspect, can increase our faith and give us peace.
That's right. Yeah, because we kind of expected it to
We know
come.
it's happening.
Yeah,
we know it's going to happen. So,
you know, it's a we were going in. That was on Monday.
Then we looked at the concept that peace isn't the absence of trouble.
Yeah,
it's actually an internal attitude and I guess an internal sense that we are still okay, and we can do that if we have Jesus by our side.
Yeah,
or if we recognise that Jesus is by our side.
Yeah, there's something incredible about that, isn't there? That type of peace. And today we're going to talk about peace under pressure. Because last time we talked about, peace is not the absence of trouble. It's when trouble's there. And now, in the Bible actually talks about that Christians will face persecution. And Jesus talked about it in Matthew 24. And then we're going to go into Revelation 13. Now, if anyone's looked at Revelation, this is a very important book for Seventh-day Adventists, but it's very symbolic. You have to try and interpret and figure out what are these symbols that it's talking about. In Revelation 12, just before this chapter, it talks about this dragon and this woman. And thankfully in that chapter it says, and that dragon is the old serpent Satan. So you don't have to try and guess who that is.
It makes it very clear who the dragon is, for sure.
But in other places, like this one, you've got to try and figure it out for yourself. But in any case...
But it does say earlier on in this chapter that the dragon's power is behind these things as well.
That's right. It's what is motivating and giving authority to these other beasts. And these beasts are funny-looking beasts. They're funny-looking animals. They look like, I suppose we put in modern terms, they look like mutated... Like a lab experiment.
Like 7 heads.
Yeah, that's right. It's a mixture of a bear and a dragon and a leopard, and it's got wings, it's got all types of things happening here. But in any case, the Bible says that this beast, if you understand prophecy in Daniel, when it talked about beasts, it talked about kingdoms. They were nations.
Yeah, powers.
Right, powers. And so we know for a fact that this mutated animal is a power. And there's a certain words that pop up quite often when you read through this chapter, and it says it causes
or makes
the people of the earth. It causes, and it's all about forcing its power. And it's
with threats that go along with it. Yeah,
and the big thing in Revelation 13, it says that what it starts to coerce in particular, it's very specific.
It's worship. Talking about worship.
And so right now, we're talking about wars in the beginning and how it's affecting us with the fuel prices and the food and all that kind of thing. But in the end, when it starts coming to forcing you how and who to worship, that's
something we need to take notice of.
that's getting to a specific thing that we all, like when we talk about take for granted, right? We really do take for granted the fact that we can worship the way we do. I know for a fact that around the world there are places where if you worship a certain way, you can get killed for it. And Christians are warned in Revelation 13. There is a time where it's going to come, and it says specifically that this beast will force you to not be able to sell or buy or trade unless you submit to its power. And if that's anything, Jason, that is pressure. Right? And so the question here, the subject we're talking about, how do you find peace under that type of pressure? And I'll tell you what, if you didn't know God or your whole life, and then you're told, hey, listen, if you're going to worship this empire or you're going to worship this, okay, what would be your response if you didn't know Jesus?
Well, with the threats that come with it,
the
easy thing to do is just to comply.
Yeah, to say sure, because I suppose a popular Australian answer would be, I don't worship anyone. I do my own thing. But they say, no, this isn't about you doing your own thing. You're going to have to do this. Otherwise, you're not going to get this. You're not going to be able to buy, sell, or do this, that, and the other. Oh, okay. Right. And you mean, we had a taste of that during the COVID, where the government literally said, if you don't get this,
you can't work.
Well, yeah, they told
jobs.
They told jobs, right? Like, if your employees don't get this, then, and so you could be out of work. When we went to shops, you got to stand here, you got to do this, that, and the other. And of course, a lot of us complied because we wanted to be able to buy food and toilet paper when it was available. All these things we did to comply because you don't know any different. But that was to do with that didn't have to do with worship.
No.
But Revelation is very specific about when it comes to that. So when it comes to somebody that has known Jesus, they've had time to practice. Is that how should I put it? They've had time to strengthen their faith, right? I think particularly on this, my mind goes straight here. I think about Sabbath and fasting. As Seventh-day Adventists, that's part of our practices in faith. And the whole point of Sabbath, well, not the whole point, but one of the points of Sabbath is learning to go without. There's some of the decisions that we make on the Sabbath. When I was growing up, I didn't make these decisions. My parents were the overarching beast in my world as far as that's concerned. And they said that I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't play with my toys. I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers with my friends. And I thought that was terrible, I had no idea that what they were teaching me. I found this out when I was about 11 or 12 because Dad started to tell me these abstract ideas. He said, what I'm trying to teach you is to learn that at these times, the only person we should be depending on is God. Whether you can't buy, you can't sell, you can't go to your friends, you can't watch TV. In the end, everything you need is found in God in the Bible. And then he taught me fasting's the same. When you do fasting, you're learning to go without food and depending on the word of God. And so when you start having that type of faith, amongst other things that we do, we're taught to serve. One of the key factors of our Christian upbringing or practice is to serve others. Look outside yourself and serve others because Jesus also served others. And that's a big part of our faith. So when we come to Revelation 13 and we envision these things, right? Because I don't know about you, Jason, but I've already started doing the worst case scenario should I not be able to drive anywhere, should we not have enough food in the supermarkets, what worst case scenario, what we're going to do in these situations. I've done a worst case scenario with Revelation 13 as well. And I tell you, I'm at peace with not complying. I can say and I don't want to sound ungrateful for what whoever this beastly power is, whether it's the government or whoever it may be. I'm not being ungrateful, but I can say with a straight face, I really don't need you. I've from the start, I've always needed Jesus, and to this day, I still need Jesus. He's my number one. He's the only reason why I'm alive, and that I could even have this type of faith.
It brings me back to the Israelites in the wilderness and some of the early patterns that were established there and instructions that were given. They had a year every 7 years where they did not plant crops.
Yeah, the Jubilee.
But the Jubilee was every 50 years, but every 7 years they would not plant crops. And then every lots of 7 of those, they actually had 2 years. They had the 7th year and then they had the Jubilee year where they wouldn't plant anything. And during those periods of time, they had to entirely trust in God for their own provision. And then on a weekly basis, they were fed manna, and they were told that the manna wouldn't come on the Sabbath. It would but double would
That's right.
be okay on,
That's right.
on the Friday.
Yeah.
And so
God was training them.
God was training them to say, hey, you can trust me.
Yeah.
That you don't have to worry about your food and things on the Sabbath. We will give that to you. And so I think it's a beautiful exercise in faith. You've talked about the Sabbath earlier in your younger years as well.
Yeah.
It is actually an exercise in faith to say, no, I don't need to work on Sabbath.
Yeah.
I can trust in God for my provision. And I don't need to, in the future, worry about where my food or clothes comes from.
That's right.
Jesus promises that He'll take care of us.
I mean, this is even outside our box, but I even encourage my children, no devices for the Sabbath. You know, you can do without it. You know, sometimes my youngest is like, are you sure, Dad? Can we really do it? But yeah, when pressure increases, our faith increases. So the question here, when the rubber meets the road, the question is, who do you trust or what do you trust? What do you cling to in these times? And what are you willing to stand for? And if we don't develop that peace now, we're going to struggle later. And so if the fuel prices are shaking you at a real visceral level now, how would you go when you have to make a conscious decision when it comes to who you give your allegiance in life? Well, we use the word worship. How will you react in that particular time? Think about it. Worst case scenario. But it's not about fear, it's about preparation. Since Jesus told us, he's not trying to scare us. He's trying to strengthen us, prepare us for these moments. He's a very transparent Jesus, which I'm really thankful for. But the question you want to ask yourself is, am I building a faith that can handle pressure? Because in the end, it won't be fear that sustains you. It'll be a deep, deep understanding and relationship with Jesus Christ that sustains us.
Absolutely. Stay tuned for our book offer.
This program is made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.
Our book offer this week is Finding Peace Amidst the Storm. This is a faith experiment by Robbie Bergen. Life's storms are unavoidable, but peace in the midst of them is possible. In this book, Pastor Robbie Bergen shares his personal journey and explores biblical principles for overcoming stress, anxiety, and fear. Through practical insights, powerful stories, and step-by-step faith experiments, this book guides you to discover the peace that God promises, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Test God's promises for yourself and learn how to experience lasting peace even when life feels out of control. If that book sounds good to you, text us in on 0488 880 891. Now, if that number's hard for you to write down, just go to faithfm.com.au or Google Faith FM Australia, and on our program, Tassie Encounters, you'll see that number written on the website. TEM63 is our code. TEM63, text it into 0488 880 891. Thank you for joining us again today, and tomorrow we're going to finish off this little series with Living with Unshakable Faith. So do join us then. As we go out today, this is Angie Killian, Bravely Grey and Aberdeen Lane with Ready to Rise.
Where can I turn when I feel alone, lost in the crowd, where I should belong? Where do I belong?
Steady my faith when others walk away. Give me your strength when I feel afraid. I don't have to be afraid.
I can do all things through Christ, walking with His love as my light. He takes my weakness and makes up the difference. He calls me to rise. He calls me to rise.
This program has been made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.